as long as we fight against this, as long as we have resistance against reality, we will suffer. And you don't always have to share about the meaning of life and your biggest crisis and your childhood trauma. For me, creating deeper connections and relationships is about courage. It's about the courage to share yourself openly and vulnerably. Welcome to today's episode of Stream of Consciousness. In this episode, I will be sharing my perspective on the loneliness epidemic, how to cultivate real connection. And as in all other episodes of Stream of Consciousness, I will be just sharing without any script or any pre-planned story, my thoughts, inspiration, and what's going on inside of me as authentically as I can with you, just to practice authenticity, to share it with you and to inspire you to live your most authentic self and essence. So here we go. The loneliness epidemic is real. There are so many people, and there are a lot of studies and statistics about that as well, that people feel more and more lonely. People feel more and more disconnected. And weirdly enough, people spend more and more time on social media. So the question really is, what creates real connection? Is it sending a WhatsApp message? Is it posting about your holidays? Is it hugging a friend? Is it going for a walk? What really creates real connection? And how does that relate with living your essence and authenticity? I have quite a lot of thoughts about this topic that I would love to share with you. So first of all, I find myself also being part of this loneliness epidemic. Every now and then, I have these phases in my life where I spend a lot of time on my own. And then I interact with many people through calls and through messages and through social media as well. And sometimes it feels that it's not really sinking in. It feels like a more flat, a more superficial connection. For example, I like to compare it when eating fast food. When eating something, you see, for example, this a cheap burger, and then it's not homemade with love and a really good burger. They also have these ones. But if it's just like something which is kind of just like a capsule of like an empty capsule, you're just consuming calories basically, but it's not nourishing. And for me, it's very similar with consuming social media. It's very similar to me because we're still consuming, and we're consuming a lot. And people spend hours and hours and hours doom scrolling. So if you would think from that perspective, you could say this person is consuming a lot, therefore they must feel satisfied. But it's not the quantity of what we consume. It's not that eating 10 bags of chips will make you feel nourished just because you ate 10 bags. It's not the quantity. It's the quality, and it's about how we approach it and how we get into connection with others and with ourselves. So if we use this analogy, you can also look at your own life and ask yourself, where am I consuming chips in this metaphor? And where am I connecting with other people in the way that feels like I'm just consuming and eating chips? Very superficial, very flat. And not to blame you and not to be like shame you or talking bad about you. Just for this moment to look at it with curiosity and observe and say, yeah, that's the way it currently is. Because as long as we fight against this, as long as we have resistance against reality, we will suffer. If we just accept reality, how it is, as it is, in this very moment. That doesn't mean that we don't want to change it, that we don't want to change our behavior, for example. But just saying, yeah, it's the way that it is. I'm spending this amount of time per hour on social media. I am consuming chips, having relationships that feel like I'm eating a lot of chips, very flat. And that's just the way it is. And also take a look at the side where you actually already establish connections that feel deep, where you feel when meeting this person that there is something that gets nourished on a deeper level. That feels like instead of eating a bag of chips, maybe eating one of my favorite dishes is ratatouille or some Indian curry. And I feel like, this is so good. So where do you have these kind of experiences? And then you can already see this is already happening. Maybe not to the extent that you would like it to happen. Maybe it feels unbalanced, but maybe you can feel this is already part of your life. And then we can ask ourselves, okay, how can we move closer to the state that we desire? How can we create real connections? That we move from this loneliness epidemic through self-efficacy. That means like we feel agency to change and to act out of our own longing, desire, and interest, to shape the world to our liking. And that doesn't mean the entire world, but your world. So the question is, how do we cultivate real connections, deep and nourishing connections? And by the way, I created an online course, The Essence of Nourishing Relationships, which you can also check out on my website. And the essential part of creating these deeper connections is through authenticity, through being yourself, through sharing vulnerably and openly and honestly what's really going on inside of you. And that can feel a little bit frightening because on social media, it's so easy just to share this shiny, everything is amazing and beautiful side of us. So we don't get, maybe we get less judged, but I also think that's not true. And I believe that it takes some courage to share yourself openly with others. So one invitation that I have for you is the next time you meet with another person, another friend, another colleague, when they ask you the following question, how are you? My invitation is to not reply with good or bad. Try something else, just for this experience. You could try, for example, saying, I'm sad. I'm happy. I'm tired. I'm surprised. I'm confused. I'm thinking a lot. I'm restless. I have a longing to create something. Whatever it is, just try and play around with that, because that's already one level deeper. And for me, it's very simple thought process. If we just share from our surface, the connection can't be deep. And if we share from our depth, the connection can be deep. So it's very similar, very simple. And you don't always have to share about the meaning of life and your biggest crisis and your childhood trauma. That's also not what I'm saying. It's just in this moment, being authentic and true to yourself and share what's alive for you in this very moment. And I can imagine that in your environment, this might create moments or contribute to confusion because it's maybe different than how you would reply before listening to this podcast episode. And then the person, your friend, might feel, oh, something is different. This is weird. And they might want to pull you back to the state that they know and they liked about you. Doesn't mean that they don't like the new one, just means that they might be confused and they might want safety and therefore try to get you back to the version that they know of you that feels safer. So it's a lot about courage, actually. For me, creating deeper connections and relationships is about courage. It's about the courage to share yourself openly and vulnerably. Doesn't mean that everything always needs to be sad and heavy. Not at all. It just means that you can invite yourself to feel more transparent, that people can actually see inside of you. And I found that in the very beginning quite challenging, to be honest. Like, people told me and said, well, yeah, they told me, John, I would love to feel you a little bit more. It's difficult to feel you. You're always on the happy side. You're always like, everything is good and everything's bright and amazing. We also want to feel the other parts. I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like, I know what you mean then. I also find myself mostly in a very like open, joyful, optimistic state. That's true. I find myself. And not that often I find myself in states of density and heaviness. I do have them, definitely. But I was like, okay, but that would feel fake if I then just try to talk about heavy stuff. And then someone told me it's not about sharing the heavy stuff all the time and thinking about when was the last time that I felt where I felt unpleasant emotions and share that. It's just about like sharing what's alive in the moment. For example, right now I have a slight headache. I had today and yesterday. Didn't have this headache. I didn't have headaches in the last weeks or months. And it's there. I don't overanalyze it. I can just share it with you. It's like, that's there. And at the same time, what is also there is my joy and openness and this, yeah, I feel like, yeah, this fire or this river flowing through me of, yes, I want to share this with you. And I really want to inspire you. And I hope that this inspires you and that you take whatever it is that is most interesting for you with you and transform it into supporting you to live your essence. And that's basically what I'm all about. For me, the highest excitement comes when I feel that other people unlock parts of themselves, that they get to know themselves better, and that people dare to make a step closer to themselves, closer to their essence, to shine their essence and their light just openly, authentically with the world. And when we're speaking about this loneliness epidemic and this question of how to create real connection, my big invitation is to make the first step towards your connection with yourself. The connection to yourself is the most important connection. And maybe you won't feel as lonely when you start sharing yourself openly with yourself. And then you can make another step and share yourself openly with others, with your friends, with your partner, with your family, and just see how that impacts you, your life, your aliveness, your sense of openness, of integrity, your sense of freedom, of inner balance. I'm very, very excited for you. And I truly and deeply wish you the best and a lot of courage and a lot of self-compassion on this path, that you can live your essence and cultivate real and deep meaningful, beautiful, beautiful connection with yourself. So see you the next time in the next episode. Bye bye.